All right, so a lot of these people who I've been watching their videos online and basically trying to find the videos that explain things the best, um, that explain me the best. And I try to find people who are good looking because they get more viewing time, they get more likes, they get more audience retention, and that means that you're more likely to hear what they're saying. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot of stuff that most of my friends, most of the people who I got close to in my life, they just don't understand. When I start to explain it to them, they interrupt me and say, "Oh, Sean, I understand. Sean, I've known you for such and such an amount of time, and you know that's not true. They've known me, but they don't know me." A lot of the time that I was here in Chapel, Nebraska, I made sure that I avoided situations that would bring it to the point that I would have a meltdown. Um, that includes staying away from people who are jerks, or uh, staying away from parties or social situations where there's going to be loud music and people are going to expect me to mingle and interact. Um, I mean, there's certain steps that you can take in order to not have a meltdown. If you know what sends you into a panic attack, then you know what to avoid. Um, there's a few things that I had red flagged before I ever went to Virginia in 2016. I'm like, I don't have the support network set up. So before I went, I made sure I had a support network. Um, it wasn't going to be just Natalie and Alicia. It was going to be Natalie and Alicia and Maddie Boa, and of course myself. I do have to do self care. And then there was, hopefully, I was going to be showing up with about $300 to spare when I got there. I was planning on going to see some other people I knew on the East Coast. I was going to go see Sage in Chicago, and I was going to see Christine Muhit's ex. His name is Ed. I was going to see him in Dayton, Ohio. And I was going to see some of the sites there, like Old Yorktown and the Flight Museum there in Dayton, Ohio. And I was going to go see Brett Roloff in North Carolina. And I was going to basically, I had it set up so that I could do a lot of different things. But of course, Brett was in jail when I got there. And then there was, Mahalia was already gone by the time I got there. And um, Andrew Witcher's mom, I was supposed to have her as a backup as far as the job goes, and she just never got in contact with me. And I didn't have a support network there. I was in a new area that was unfamiliar to me, and I really felt like shit because I didn't want to put that kind of pressure on Natalie and Alicia. Um, but I also, I mean, I grew up in the system. I understand human nature. I understand the dark side of people. I understand that you might have 8 good staff members in a facility, 2 of them that are undecided, and one of them that's a complete and total piece of shit. But that guy who's doing that fucked up piece of shit stuff to you, he's friends with all of those other people in there. And the 2 guys that are not friends with him that are working on the staff, they just kind of avoid him or they do what the doctor tells them to. So when you end up having somebody in a facility like that who's a staff member who's doing that stuff, I mean, it's way more fucked up because you can't go to anybody. You can't go to another staff member and say, hey, this guy did something fucked up because you basically get blown off. When Now, mind you, I've seen a lot of guys that have had to go through hell because they were falsely accused of shit, but they weren't falsely accused on the news, and their families didn't take a whole year to actually do something. Um, their families showed up in court. When you're homeless, you basically show up to court alone. When it comes to having a meltdown, I mean, you know what gives you a panic attack. You know what gives you a meltdown. A new environment will give me a panic attack. Too much noise will give me a panic attack. My loved ones dying will give me a severe panic attack. A friend dying and somebody telling me how to think and feel about it while the radio is blaring, that'll send me into a meltdown. Um, when people say that they're going to help me, they're going to write a report, and they're going to allow me a space to work on the things that I need to, and then they don't, and then I'm stuck listening to Joshua Eichelberger calling a couple of 3-year-olds cunts. I mean, that is a really stressful situation for me. And then there's the fact that I'm buying this guy's alcohol. And when Tabby put her foot down on the alcohol and said, Sean, don't buy him alcohol, he's just too lazy to go over to his mom's and ask her to buy him alcohol. And I went, well, that's a good thing to know. Well, then he wanted to smoke weed. He wanted to calm down a bit, as he said it. But then he would get drunk and want to smoke weed. And then he's basically trying to blackmail me in Tabby's house. And, Joshua Eichelberger, he's got a protection order against him. He's not even supposed to be in the household at that point in time. Last I knew, Tabby was still having issues with that. Joshua coming over and beating on her door at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's a scary situation for me. If somebody is beating on another person around me, I will probably have a meltdown. You are not going to encounter me getting violent with anyone unless first they're getting violent with me. Now, if you put drugs in me, we got a different situation altogether. The side effects of the drugs that were put into me in most of these places are getting violent. That is literally one of the listed side effects. Do not put drugs in me. Listen to me. That is the best way to get something done. When shit happened that happened before Natalie died, I knew that I was this close to having a fucking meltdown. I needed an honest day in court. I needed Natalie and Alicia Bollinger to admit in court that I didn't do the things that I was getting assaulted for doing. To this day, I've not been allowed to take Alicia Bollinger to court. And the fucked up system down there in Colorado did everything in their power to make sure that I didn't have the money to take any of these people who did wrong to court. I couldn't take any of these officers to court. And the few times that I was able to actually get to the courthouse so that I could do that, I wasn't allowed. I had to deal with Ted Bollinger screaming at me and calling me a child molester and shit like that, and Joseph Michael Lopez's court date. And me, I didn't want to have any problems with the family. I wasn't there to create any issues. I was there to see the dude that killed Natalie, and I was there to file a police report against the Bollinger family, against Tim Beeson, against Ted Bollinger, and against the police there. I made a video about that actually outside of the Broomfield or the Adams County Courthouse. I mean, people keep telling me, Sean, you need to stay strong, and it's not easy. Like here, the guy that I'm staying with, he likes his video games same as I do, same as Peaches does. That's our way of escaping from reality for a few minutes, take our mind off of the hell that we're going through. But he also likes to watch Game of Thrones, and y'all know how I feel about Game of Thrones. I mean, that's just too much goddamn violence for me. After 2 or 3 episodes of Game of Thrones, I'm trying not to scream at the top of my lungs, please stop, please stop, please stop. But I can't do that. That's disruptive. It's not my house. Now, the guy I'm staying with, a few years ago, his sister disappeared, and we finally found her. And I went to go visit her. And that was the point in time that I decided that I needed to have a safe place for these people to go. When you're trying to get off the drugs, going to an area where you have access to the drugs, or where those druggies are that you normally hang out with, it's tough to stay sober. And it's tough to stay alive. My panic attacks, I know that they're coming. I know what the scenario is. I know human nature. I know who it is that people scapegoat. I know who it is that it's easiest to victimize. Just like the rest of you, whether you want to admit it or not, you know that if you have a bad day, you can go take it out on a homeless person. You know that if you're too afraid to tell on your dad for molesting you, you can go and take it out on a homeless person. Nobody's going to care if you take it out on a homeless person. A homeless person isn't going to kick you out of their house for telling on them. A homeless person isn't going to take away the roof over your head. You just pick a random stranger who just happens to be homeless. It's like a lot of these mass murderers who pick prostitutes at truck stops. They're like, hey, I can kill these women because nobody cares about them. If anybody cared about them, they wouldn't be prostitutes. A lot of my panic attacks come from the fact that I need help. I need help from people that I love and care about. Before Natalie died, there was a lot of people that I went to try to get help. And they didn't understand that them talking over me and telling me how to think and feel wasn't help. They didn't understand the situation. I mean, sure, a lot of their advice would be great advice under other circumstances. But under the circumstances that I was dealing with, that wasn't advice. That was just them spitting a general meme at me. You just need to do this yourself. You just need to do that yourself. You just need to love yourself. Well, if I didn't love myself, I wouldn't have gone through any of this. I'd have just killed myself. That's where my struggle comes in, is that I want my life to be over, but I do love myself. I love the person that I chose to be. When I was going to buy this house, it was before Amy Spencer and all them came in and raided the place with stuff they could sell for meth. When I was going to buy this place, it was so that I could rescue people. Not just other people, but also myself. I needed myself to have a safe environment. An environment where if I wanted to build something, I didn't have to ask for permission. A place where if I needed to take a shower, I didn't have to ask for permission. A place where if I have a bad day, I'm not going to get kicked out of that household. If I need to sit in the corner and cry, I can do that without being harassed for doing it. I don't have to worry about the person who owns the house ripping me off or taking my rent money and kicking me out the very next day just because they can. Ending up homeless gives me a lot of anxiety because I know that my shit's going to get stolen. When Natalie died, I already knew that Ken and Leah were going to use that as an excuse. I was trying to get a lawyer to go after Ken and Leah and to go after Natalie for the things that they did. When Natalie disappeared, I already knew what Ken and Leah were up to. I already knew that they were going to use that as an excuse, like I was some sort of a bad guy after they had stolen my money and their roommate had assaulted me. And no, Dawn didn't punch me in the face or anything like that. She just basically was bumping me with her chest until I was out the back door. I hate violence. Of course, I'm not going to fight with three grown adults who are screaming at me in a fucking kitchen. But the even tougher part is that all these people know that I'm sober. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. And I very rarely smoke marijuana. That was one of the biggest problems I had at Starbucks. So many people loved me, but they didn't really love me. They just liked me because I made them feel better. And they always wanted to come smoke their pot with me. Hey, Sean, let's go out back and smoke a bowl. Like, no, I don't want to. And a lot of them, they just wouldn't take no for an answer. They just kept harassing me and harassing me and harassing me. No, I don't want to. I mean, it got to the point where literally somebody would harass me to the point that I'm about to have a meltdown in Starbucks. And at that point, yeah, fuck yes. All right, let's smoke this fucking weed. I will have my panic attack be a lot less and you will go away. Because, see, a lot of times that's all people wanted to do. They thought, hey, Sean was good to me. I'll smoke a bowl with him. I'll smoke some of my marijuana with him to say thank you to him for helping me out. And they didn't understand that added to the stress. Through all of this, trying to get people educated on what's going on, trying to get them educated on the fact that, yeah, I think differently. That doesn't make me wrong. And then there's the whole idea of sharing the information that you know. I mean, you can only share a certain amount with people, and that certain amount is entirely dependent upon them. There's a lot of people that, they loved my artwork and they said, I wish I could do that. And I'd always tell them the same thing. I can teach you how to do that in about 2 weeks. I can teach you how to draw portraits of people in about 2 weeks. Oh, no, I could never do that. Well, that right there is why you could never do it, because you said you couldn't. With a lot of the stuff that people expect me to do, I can't do them. And it's not a matter of not trying. I'm saying that I can't do it by myself because I've been trying to do it by myself for almost 2 decades. I didn't get housing until I actually had someone go in with me to help me get housing. I didn't get disability until somebody actually stepped up to the plate and actually helped me. Sat down with me in the paperwork. It's not that I'd never filled out the paperwork. I had. But you go through so many resources trying to get that help that, I mean, you've got a whole year of your life invested into this by the time they deny you. You're like, I owe people money because I couldn't do these things myself. I had to borrow money from people to do this stuff. I picked up every little job that I could get. I mean, Chapel, Nebraska here, there isn't a lot of employment opportunities. People got great ideas like, you should try to carpool with somebody. That's a great idea. I've had plenty of people say, "Hey, Sean, if you need a ride, let me know." I work in Sydney every day, so if you need a job, if you get a job up in Sydney, I'll carpool with you. And then I end up getting a job where I start work 30 minutes before they do, and they're like, "I'm not going to get up that early. I'm not going to wait around for a half an hour before work." One of the jobs that I got in Sydney, Nebraska, I had it for about a month and a half. I slept behind work, literally. I mean, the thing is that when I'm going to have a meltdown, it's entirely predictable most of the time. I know that the way that the police interact with somebody who's homeless is going to send me into an immediate panic attack. I knew that the way that they were going to treat me after everything was all over the news. I mean, yeah, people assumed that I was guilty. People were assaulting me because they thought I was guilty. The police were not any different. They didn't care that people were literally assaulting me. When I said I needed a safe place, I needed a safe place for myself and for the evidence that I had. I needed to be able to sit down and show the things that I would have shown in court if I'd have been able to go. I didn't have any money. And that's where you get railroaded, not having any money. If you have no money, you're not a human being. They know that they can do whatever they want to you because you're not going to have the money to get a civil lawyer. People say, well, there's pro bono lawyers. Yeah, but in order to get a pro bono lawyer, these people who I had been trying to get to write their police reports, they needed to write that shit down. Without that, it's my word against the police word. And they call me mentally ill. And the things that it's illegal for them to do to all of you, it's now legal for them to do it to me. I want to encourage you all to watch a movie called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Um, the system is actually a lot worse than that, but it'll give you an idea. Having panic attacks is no fun. Being punished for having a panic attack will turn it into a meltdown. Having somebody corner you into a room like my dad did and scream at the top of their lungs at you, that'll turn into a meltdown. And there's a lot of autistic people out there that have meltdowns, and they can tell you what gives them a meltdown. That's the biggest problem that I had with all of the police that I encountered. I was trying to explain to them how it is that they could get useful information from me, how not to send me into a fucking meltdown. They went out of their way to send me into a meltdown in most cases. We all need help. Everyone on this planet needs help. We don't live on a planet of one. All these people saying, oh, well, you just have to depend on yourself. No, you don't. You have to depend on somebody to employ you if you want a job. You have to depend on other people no matter what. I mean, there's a loaf of bread in the kitchen here. I didn't make that loaf of bread. And even if I had made that loaf of bread, I sure didn't grind and mill all of the flour that went into it. There's a lot of stuff that you say, hey, I don't need anybody. You do. You do. You do depend on other human beings. You depend on others for that loaf of bread. You depend on the butcher to chop up that cow. You can't afford that whole cow at once. Now, can you? Can you eat the whole cow at once? No. So you have to depend on the people who built the refrigerator. You have to depend on the power company and all of the people who work there. You have to depend on the people who maintain the machines at the power company. You have to depend on the person who built your refrigerator. You have to depend on the person who built your faucet. You don't know how to build those things yourself. I do. I know how to build most of these things myself. I just don't have a place to do it. I mean, there's a lot of things that I wanted to do with this house. And when I see it, I'm like, I want to do this and this and this and this, and it's not my house. Within 3 months or 4 months of Natalie dying, I would have been able to buy this house. Literally, the house that I'm in is the house that I was trying to buy from Megan Christie before Natalie died. This house would have been my safe environment. At Ken and Leah's, I got screamed at a lot, not for doing anything wrong, but because I checked them for what they did wrong. Hey, Ken, when are you going to pay me my money back? So he backed me up in the kitchen, and he was screaming at me, and Leah was screaming at me. And that woke Dawn up, and she come out of the room screaming at me. I don't expect Dawn or Ken or Leah to admit what they did wrong. But at the same time, Miss Peaches hadn't done anything wrong in that scenario. Being blown off will send me into a meltdown. If I'm having a meltdown, I'm probably being an asshole. I'm probably saying, fuck you. You can kiss my ass. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why don't you call me and talk to me like a human being? If you guys saw the things that I texted to Lori, you'd be like, dude, you're a fucking asshole. Well, yes, I am. I literally needed someone to call to understand. Now, I do understand that in her position, she's not able to help me. But also, she wasn't there for the scenario. She wasn't there for the situation. Kayla Trujillo was. Her brother Gilbert was there for the situation. There's a lot of people that I had tried to get a hold of that promised me up and down that they were going to help that never did. And they knew that I was innocent. They knew that I was trying to get help. And on the police paperwork, they write down that I wasn't trying to get any help. Miss Peaches helped me to set up appointments to go see therapists. Miss Peaches herself was helping me set that up. What the police did was slander my name and go out of their way not to do any goddamn investigating. But also, if you look at the conversations that me and Miss Peaches had, me and Mandy Hughes had, me and Cara Rogers had, me and Aaron Cockerham had, those are all still here on my YouTube, by the way. The police wouldn't take a report from anyone about any of it. Katie Cahill as well, but Katie Cahill never bothered to try going to the police. Her conversations are on here too. The thing is, we all need help. And when I went to people for help, I got victimized or just treated like shit.